Hello there, and welcome. Settle in now. Let the weight of your day begin to soften. Find a comfortable position and close your eyes if you wish. Tonight, we will not be visiting the grand halls of kings or witnessing epic battles that shake the heavens. Our journey is a quieter one. We are going to walk for a while alongside a lonely figure and his great silent companion. We are going to learn what it was truly like to be a wandering knight, with only a direwolf for company, on the endless, forgotten roads of a long-ago world. Our story begins not with a sunrise, but in the deep, quiet blue of the hour before the dawn. The world is asleep, holding its breath, waiting for the first hint of light. In a small clearing, tucked between the roots of ancient mossy oaks, a fire has given up its fight for the night. All that remains is its quiet heart, a small collection of embers pulsing with a soft, deep orange glow, like a handful of sleeping dragons. Next to this fading warmth lies a man wrapped in a heavy wool bedroll. He sleeps the sleep of the utterly exhausted, his breath slow and even, one hand resting on the hilt of the longsword lying beside him. He is still. He is at peace. But he is not alone, and he is not unguarded. The focus of our story is not the sleeping man, not yet. It is the great beast lying beside him, a creature of shadow and silence. This is Fen. And while the man sleeps, the wolf watches. He lies with his massive head resting on his forepaws, a posture that might suggest relaxation to an unknowing eye. But his eyes are open. They are the color of pale winter gold, and they miss nothing. His ears, two sharp, dark triangles, twitch and pivot, constantly sampling the air, analyzing the quiet symphony of the night. His role is not one of a pet waiting for its master. This is the first watch, a duty he has accepted without command, a purpose that hums in his very bones. His world in this moment is a tapestry woven from sound and smell. He hears everything. He hears the soft, almost imperceptible sigh of the wind as it moves through the high, unseen branches of the oaks. He hears the dry, papery rustle of a dead leaf skittering across the stony ground 50 feet away. These are the loud noises, the public announcements of the forest. Beneath them, he hears the secrets. He hears the frantic, busy scratching of a field mouse deep within its burrow, and he can map the entire short, busy, and ultimately very foolish life of that mouse just by the sounds it makes. He finds it vaguely interesting, but it is not a threat, so he lets the sound fade into the background. Far off, on the other side of the valley, an owl hoots. It is a lonely, repetitive sound. The owl, Fen thinks, seems to have only one single idea, and it is very proud of it. The wolf has heard this particular owl every night for the past 3 nights. He is beginning to find it a bit boring. He can even hear the tiny, chitinous clicks of beetles moving deep within the rotting logs that border the clearing. It is a conversation he is not invited to, but one he understands perfectly. None of it matters. These are all just the normal, rhythmic heartbeats of the deep woods. They are the sounds of a world at peace. He is listening for the sound that does not belong, the snap of a twig under a heavy, unfamiliar foot, the clink of metal against rock, the low growl of another predator. But tonight there is only the quiet. And then there is the world of smell, a world far richer and more detailed than any human could possibly imagine. To Fen, the air is not just air. It is a library of information. He can smell the damp black earth, rich with the scent of 1,000 years of decay and rebirth. He can smell the sharp, clean mineral scent of the cold stones that ring the dead fire. He can even smell the faint, ghostly scent of the deer that passed through this clearing hours ago. But layered over all of it, the most important and anchoring smell in his universe is the scent of his man. It is a complicated smell. It is the scent of worn leather from his boots and gloves, the faint metallic tang of the steel of his armor and sword, the salty, familiar scent of old sweat, and the smoky, comforting smell of the wool bedroll. It is the smell of wood smoke in his hair and road dust on his clothes. To anyone else, it might be an unappealing combination. To Fen, it is the smell of safety. It is the smell of home. It is the scent of the one single thing in this entire vast world that matters. He shifts his weight slightly, a movement so subtle it is almost imperceptible. The sleeping man stirs, murmuring something unintelligible in a dream, and his hand moves, its fingers brushing against the thick, dark fur of the wolf's ruff. Fen does not react, but a deep, quiet sense of contentment settles over him. This is the pact. This is the bargain. The man provides fire and the occasional, deeply satisfying scratch behind the ears. The wolf provides his senses, his teeth, and his unwavering silent vigilance. He is not a wolf in the way the pack wolves of the far north are wolves. He is something else. He is a sentinel. He is a guardian. His loyalty is not to a pack, but to this one single sleeping human. He is a shield forged of fang and claw, a silent guardian who stands his watch while his charge finds his rest. The gold eyes continue to scan the darkness. The sharp ears continue to pivot. The sensitive nose continues to read the stories on the wind. The night is long, but his patience is longer. The man sleeps. The wolf watches. And all is right with the world. The transition from the deep, dreamless black of sleep to the first hints of consciousness is not a sudden jolt for the night, Kylan. There is no jarring alarm, no urgent call to action. It is a slow, gentle, and reluctant process, like a boat drifting from a quiet, dark lagoon out into the pale, cool waters of the open sea. He becomes aware of his own body first, piece by painful piece. He is aware of the solid, unforgiving ground beneath him, a presence that has imprinted itself onto his hip and shoulder through the thin wool of his bedroll. He is aware of a deep, resonant ache in his lower back, a familiar old friend that greets him every morning. He is aware of the stiffness in his knees and the tightness in his shoulders, the physical toll of long days spent walking and long nights spent sleeping on the hard earth. His body is a map of past exertions, a testament to a life lived on the road. But the first true sensation that cuts through the fog of sleep is not one of discomfort. It is warmth, a solid, living, breathing warmth pressed firmly against the length of his back. It is a comforting, reassuring weight, a furnace of fur and muscle that has been warding off the worst of the night's chill. It is the first and last thing he feels every day. It is Fen. This warmth is his anchor to the waking world. He doesn't need to open his eyes to know that the wolf is there, that he has been there all night, a silent, living wall against the darkness. With the feeling of warmth comes the feeling of cold. He becomes aware of the air on his face, the only part of him exposed from the cocoon of his bedroll. It is a sharp, clean, and surprisingly cold air, heavy with the dampness of morning dew. It carries the scent of wet leaves and rich black earth, the pure, unfiltered perfume of the deep woods. He takes a slow, deep breath, the cold air a shock to his lungs, but a clarifying one. It sweeps away the last cobwebs of sleep, bringing a sharp, clear focus to his mind. He keeps his eyes closed for a moment longer, savoring this quiet, transitional state. This is often the most peaceful part of his day, this brief pause between the oblivion of sleep and the demands of the waking world. There are no decisions to be made, no roads to choose, no dangers to assess. There is only the feeling of the cold air on his face and the warm wolf at his back. Slowly, reluctantly, he opens his eyes. The world that greets him is not one of vibrant color. It is a silent, monochromatic world, painted in an infinite spectrum of grays and silvers. This is the hour before the dawn, the time known as the wolf's light. The sky, visible through the canopy of the ancient oaks, is a pale, luminous gray, like a sheet of fine polished steel. The trees are black, skeletal silhouettes against this pale backdrop. The dew on the grass and the moss-covered stones catches the faint, ethereal light, sparkling like scattered diamonds. It is a world stripped of all but its essential forms, a place of quiet, stark, and breathtaking beauty. Kylan lies still for a long time, simply observing. He watches as a single perfect droplet of dew gathers on the tip of a fern frond, grows heavy, and then falls with a silent splash onto the leaf below. He watches the slow, gentle pulsing of the last few embers in the fire pit, their orange glow a single point of warmth in a cool, gray world. He is a man who has learned the art of stillness, the value of quiet observation. It is a skill honed by countless hours spent alone, a form of meditation that costs nothing and rewards him with a deep, abiding sense of peace. Finally, he moves. It is not a large movement, just a slow, deliberate extension of his arm. He places his hand on the great, furry expanse of the direwolf's side. His fingers sink deep into the thick, coarse fur of the wolf's outer coat, finding the soft, dense undercoat below. The fur is warm and dry, a stark contrast to the damp chill of the morning air. He feels the slow, steady rhythm of the wolf's breathing, the gentle rise and fall of his ribcage. It is a living, vital presence, solid and real. This simple act of touch is the entirety of their morning conversation. It is a gesture that says, "I am awake. Thank you for the watch." all is well. The response is immediate, though equally subtle. Fen does not lift his head. He does not turn around. But he releases a long, slow, contented sigh, a soft exhalation of air that ruffles the hair on Kylan's forearm. And then Kylan feels it through the ground, a soft, rhythmic thump, thump, thump. It is the sound of the wolf's thick, heavy tail beating a slow, steady rhythm against the damp earth. It is a gesture that says, "I know. The watch was quiet. I am glad you are awake." There is no need for words. Their bond has been forged over thousands of miles and countless shared nights under the stars. It is a communication that exists on a deeper, more instinctual level. It is a language of shared warmth, of quiet gestures, of absolute, unspoken trust. The knight knows that if there had been any danger during the night, he would have been woken not by a bark or a growl, but by a low, insistent pressure from the wolf's body, a silent, urgent signal to be ready. The wolf knows that the man's hand on his fur is not just a casual pat, but a reaffirmation of their pact, a quiet acknowledgement of his vital role in their shared survival. For a few moments longer, they remain like that, a still portrait in the gray, silent world. The man with his hand resting on the wolf, and the wolf with his tail beating a soft, slow rhythm against the earth. They are two solitary beings, a disgraced knight and a wild creature, finding a small island of companionship in the vast, indifferent wilderness. The world is waking up around them, but in their small, sheltered clearing, they have created a moment of perfect, silent understanding. The day ahead will be long, as all days are, but it will begin here, in this quiet, shared stillness, a silent promise that whatever the road may bring, they will face it together. The quiet moment of shared stillness cannot last. The pale silver light of the pre-dawn sky is slowly beginning to warm, threatening the imminent arrival of the sun, and with it, the demands of the day. With a soft, resigned sigh that seems to echo the wolf's own, Kylan pushes himself up into a sitting position. His body protests with a series of dull aches and sharp clicks, a morning symphony of complaint from his travel-worn joints. He stretches, his arms reaching for the gray sky, his back arching to work out the stiffness from the hard ground. And then the ritual begins. Breaking camp for Kylan is not a hurried, frantic chore. It is a slow, methodical, and almost sacred process. It is a meditation in motion, a series of mundane tasks that have been elevated to the level of a ceremony through countless repetitions. This ritual is the foundation of his day, a way of imposing a small, predictable order onto a life that is otherwise defined by chaos and uncertainty. Every action is deliberate, precise, and economical, honed by years of practice. There are no wasted movements, no superfluous gestures. He is a man who understands that on the road, energy is a finite and precious resource, not to be squandered. His first task is always the fire. He picks up his leather water skin and uncorks it, the small, woody sound loud in the morning silence. He kneels beside the small pit of embers, which are still pulsing with a faint, sleepy orange glow. He does not simply douse them. He pours a small, controlled stream of water onto the coals, his hand moving in a slow, circular motion. The water hits the embers with a sharp hiss, and a plume of white, sweet-smelling steam rises into the cold air. He watches, his gaze intense, as the last of the orange glow is extinguished, leaving behind only a pile of blackened, wet charcoal. He then stirs the dead coals with a stick, making absolutely sure that not a single spark of hidden life remains. A forest fire is a careless man's legacy, and Kalen is not a careless man. This small act is one of respect for the woods that have given him shelter for the night. Next, he turns his attention to his bed. He unrolls his bedroll completely, shaking it out with a few sharp, efficient snaps of his wrists. This serves to dislodge any dirt, leaves, or unwelcome six-legged guests that might have joined him during the night. The bedroll itself is a testament to his long journey. It is made of a thick, heavy wool, its original color long since faded to a nondescript, mottled brown. It is patched in several places with thread of a slightly different color, each patch a small silent story of a past tear and a patient repair. He begins to fold it, not in a clumsy bundle, but with a crisp, military precision. He folds it in half lengthwise, then in thirds, smoothing out the wrinkles with the flat of his hand at each step. He then rolls it tightly from the bottom up, squeezing out the air as he goes, until it is a compact, dense cylinder. He secures it with two well-worn leather straps, pulling them tight and buckling them with a practiced flick of his fingers. The result is a neat, portable bundle, ready for another day of travel. His other belongings are few, a Spartan collection that speaks of a life stripped down to its bare essentials. There is his cooking pot, a small, soot-blackened iron vessel, which he wipes clean with a handful of damp moss. There is his water skin, which he now recorks. There is a small leather pouch containing a flint and steel, a whetstone, and a few precious, carefully guarded coins from a forgotten kingdom. There is a small, hard loaf of dark bread, wrapped in a piece of clean, if slightly stained, linen. That is all. He has no changes of clothes, no books, no sentimental trinkets. Everything he owns is essential. Everything has a purpose. He packs these items into his saddlebags, a pair of sturdy, oilskin pouches that are as worn and weathered as he is. Each item has its designated place, a system he has perfected over time. The pot goes on the left, the food on the right. The whetstone is tucked into a small side pocket for easy access. This meticulous organization is not about neatness for neatness' sake. It is about efficiency. In a sudden downpour or a moment of unexpected crisis, he knows exactly where everything is. He can find what he needs in the dark by touch alone. It is a system designed to save precious seconds, and on the road, a few seconds can be the difference between life and death. During this entire process, Fen watches him with a quiet, intelligent patience. The wolf knows this ritual as well as the man does. He knows that the folding of the bedroll means they will soon be leaving. He knows that the packing of the pot means there will be no food until evening. He does not whine or pace. He simply observes, his golden eyes following the man's every move, his posture relaxed but alert. He is a silent, unobtrusive partner in this morning ceremony. Kalen's movements are fluid and unhurried. He is a man at peace with his tasks. For him, this ritual is more than just packing. It is a way of centering himself, of preparing his mind as well as his gear for the day ahead. Each folded blanket, each secured strap, is a small act of control in a life where he has very little. The road is unpredictable. The weather is fickle. The intentions of strangers are always unknown. But his camp, his gear, his routine, these are things he command. In the meticulous folding of his bedroll, he finds a small measure of sanity. In the careful packing of his bags, he finds a moment of peace. This quiet, methodical process is his anchor, his way of holding himself together. It is the ritual that transforms him from a man who has slept in the dirt into Kalen, the wandering knight, ready to face the world. Once the last buckle is fastened and the last item is stowed, he stands up and surveys the clearing. It is almost as if he was never there. The fire is dead, the ground is clear, his belongings are packed. The only evidence of his passing is a small, slightly flattened patch of grass where he and the wolf had slept. He gives a slow, satisfied nod. The ritual is complete. Order has been restored. He is ready. He gives a low whistle, a soft single note that is barely audible. Fen rises to his feet in a single fluid motion, stretching his long, powerful body. The knight slings the saddlebags over his shoulder, picks up his sheathed sword, and with a final, quiet glance around the clearing, he turns and begins to walk, the great wolf padding silently at his heels. The day has begun. With the camp packed and the clearing left pristine, there remains one final, crucial part of the morning ritual. It is the task Kalen dreads the most, a necessary chore that he performs with a heavy heart and a deep, weary resignation. It is time to put on his armor. This is not a glorious, heroic moment. There is no swelling music, no squire to assist him, no sense of pride or anticipation. For Kalen, arming himself is a grim, laborious process, like a condemned man dressing for his own execution. It is time to put on his armor. This is not a glorious, heroic moment. There is no swelling music, no squire to assist him, no sense of pride or anticipation. For Kalen, arming himself is a grim, laborious process, like a condemned man dressing for his own execution. The armor is not a symbol of his glory. It is the physical manifestation of his burden, the weight of a past life that he is compelled to carry with him every single day. He lays the pieces out on his discarded bedroll, a jigsaw puzzle of worn steel and rusted iron. This is not the shining, ornate armor of a storybook knight. This is the battered, ugly, brutally functional armor of a man who has seen too much combat. The steel is dull and scratched, its surface a roadmap of past struggles. It does not gleam. It absorbs the pale morning light with a flat, sullen indifference. He does not polish it to a mirror shine as he might have done in his youth. Such vanities are for tournament knights and palace guards. His only concern is function. He checks for rust, for loose rivets, for straps that are beginning to fray. Maintenance, not aesthetics, is his only concern. The first piece he puts on is the gambeson, a thick, padded tunic of quilted wool. It is stained with old sweat and road dust, and it smells faintly of damp and old leather. It is meant to be worn under the chainmail, to absorb the shock of blows and to prevent the metal rings from chafing his skin. It is uncomfortable and a necessary evil. Next comes the hauberk, the shirt of chainmail. It is heavy, a dead, flowing weight in his hands. He pulls it on over his head, the metal rings making a soft, dry, slithering sound, like a snake shedding its skin. The mail is old. Many of the tiny, interlocking rings are rusted, giving the garment a mottled, reddish-brown appearance, like a second skin of dried blood. In some places, entire sections of rings are missing, the result of blows that were strong enough to shatter the metal. He has repaired these patches himself, using whatever spare rings he could scavenge. So the hauberk is a patchwork of different sizes and qualities of iron. It is ugly, but it is whole. As he settles the weight of the mail onto his shoulders, he feels the familiar, oppressive burden descend upon him. It is a physical weight, but it is also a psychological one. It is the weight of his vows, the weight of his past. Each piece of plate armor he straps on adds to this burden. He starts with the greaves, the plates that protect his lower legs. The steel of the left greave is smooth, but the right one bears a deep, ugly dent near the ankle, a brutal crescent-shaped scar left by the morning star of an orc chieftain in a forgotten skirmish on a northern pass. He runs his thumb over the dent, a familiar, unconscious gesture. He can still feel the ghost of the impact, the sickening crunch of metal against bone. He had won that fight, but the memory brings him no pride, only a dull, hollow ache. He moves on to the vambraces that guard his forearms, then the pauldrons that protect his shoulders. One of the leather straps on his right pauldron is a different color from the rest, a pale, supple leather that contrasts with the dark, cracked original. He remembers buying that strap from a village tanner in the south, paying for it with one of his few remaining silver coins after the old one had finally snapped during a nasty fall from his horse, a horse he no longer has. Every piece of this armor is a story, a memory he would rather forget. The breastplate is the heaviest piece. As he lifts it, he grunts with the effort. He settles it over his chest and begins to fasten the thick leather straps at his pack, a clumsy, awkward process without the aid of a squire. The breastplate is the centerpiece of the armor, and it bears the most scars. There are dozens of scratches from glancing sword blows, a series of small, deep pits from a crossbow bolt, and near the heart, a long, dark scorch mark from a wizard's fire spell. He had been lucky that day. The wizard had been sloppy. He does not feel like a hero as he dons this battered shell. He feels like a walking relic, a museum of old wars and forgotten sorrows. The armor is not a source of strength. It is a cage of memory. It separates him from the world, encasing him in a cold, hard shell of his past. It makes him clumsy and slow. It makes him an object of fear and suspicion in the eyes of common folk. It is a constant physical reminder of the life he has left behind and the promises he is still, for some reason he no longer fully understands, compelled to keep. The final piece is the helmet. It is a simple, unadorned great helm, with a narrow slit for vision and small holes for breathing. He does not put it on. He simply attaches it to his belt, where it will hang clanking against his leg with every step he takes. To wear it would be to cut himself off from the world completely, to deaden the sounds of the forest and the scent of the wind. He will only wear it in battle, and he prays that day will not come soon. Once fully armed, he stands for a moment, feeling the familiar, crushing weight. It is a transformation. He is no longer Kalen, the quiet man who slept on the ground. He is now the knight, a figure of metal and memory, a ghost from another age. He moves stiffly, his joints protesting against the rigid steel. The armor makes a series of soft, metallic sounds as he moves, the faint clinking of the chainmail, the soft groaning of the leather straps. It is the sound of his prison. Fen watches this entire process with a quiet, knowing intelligence. The wolf dislikes the armor. He can smell the old metal, the rust, the faint, lingering scent of old blood that clings to it. He knows that when the man puts on his metal skin, he becomes slower, sadder, more distant. He whines softly, a low, unhappy sound in the back of his throat. Kalen looks down at the wolf and offers a rare, small, sad smile. He reaches out with a gauntleted hand and rests it for a moment on the wolf's great head. The cold, hard steel of the glove contrasts with the warm, living fur. It is a meeting of two worlds, the cold, dead past and the warm, vibrant present. "I know, my friend," he whispers, his voice muffled by the weight on his chest. "I know." And with that, he turns away from the dead fire and the memory of a peaceful night's sleep and begins to walk. The weight is heavy. The road is long. But it is his road, and this is his burden to bear. With the great, oppressive weight of his armor settled onto his shoulders, a new, more immediate need makes itself known. The familiar, hollow ache of morning hunger. Kalen is not a man who can afford the luxury of a full larder. The hard, dark bread in his pack is for emergencies, and his dwindling supply of salted meat must be rationed carefully. Fresh food is a rare and welcome prize. He turns his gaze to Fen, who is sitting patiently, his golden eyes watching the night with an unnerving intelligence. Kalen does not need to speak. He doesn't need to give a command or make a request. He simply meets the wolf's gaze, and in that silent, shared look, an entire conversation takes place. It is a conversation about need, about trust, and about the fundamental partnership that defines their existence. Fen seems to give a slow, almost imperceptible nod. He rises to his feet, shakes his massive body once from nose to tail, and without a backward glance, he melts into the deep shadows of the surrounding woods. There is no sound. One moment he is there, a solid, living creature of muscle and fur, and the next he is gone, swallowed by the forest as if he were nothing more than a passing shadow. Kalen does not watch him go. He has complete faith in the wolf's abilities. He knows that Fen is not just a companion. He is a hunter of unparalleled skill. Kalen himself is a clumsy and noisy presence in the woods. His metal armor a clanking beacon that announces his location to every living creature for half a mile. He could no sooner sneak up on a rabbit than he could fly. But Fen is a part of the forest. He moves with a silence and grace that is both beautiful and terrifying. He is the ghost in the undergrowth, the shadow that flits between the trees. So, while the wolf hunts, the night prepares. He returns to the small dead fire pit. He unfastens the flint and steel from his pouch. With practiced, efficient movements, he strikes the flint against the steel, sending a shower of bright, hot sparks into a small, carefully prepared nest of dry moss and tree bark. A thin wisp of smoke begins to rise, and Kalen leans down, blowing gently, coaxing the tiny spark into a fragile, flickering flame. He adds a few small twigs, then a few larger sticks, and soon he has a small, clean, almost smokeless fire crackling merrily in the pit. It is a small act of domesticity, a temporary taming of the wilderness. He then takes out his small soot-blackened pot and fills it with water from his water skin, setting it near the fire to warm. He is not preparing a grand feast. He is simply preparing for the possibility of one. He does not have to wait long. Perhaps 15 minutes pass. He is sharpening a small utility knife on his whetstone when he hears it. A faint rustle in the bushes at the edge of the clearing. He looks up to see Fen trotting back into the camp as silently as he left. In the wolf's massive jaws, held gently but firmly, is a large, freshly killed rabbit. The wolf pads over to Kalen and drops the rabbit at his feet with a soft, final thud. There is no pride in the wolf's posture, no demand for praise. It is a simple, matter-of-fact offering. This is his role. This is his contribution to their two-person pack. He has provided. Kalen reaches out and gives the wolf a long, slow scratch behind his ears, a gesture of profound gratitude that the wolf acknowledges with a deep, rumbling sigh of contentment. The partnership is a perfect symbiosis. Kalen, the man, provides fire, shelter, and protection from the larger, more organized threats of the world. Fen, the wolf, provides food, and his senses provide a constant, vigilant watchfulness. Together, they are more than the sum of their parts. They are a single, highly efficient survival unit. Kalen then sets about preparing the meal with the same methodical precision he applies to all his tasks. He skins and cleans the rabbit with his small, sharp knife, his movements quick and sure. He wastes nothing. The skin will be dried and used for mending or trade. The offal is offered to Fen, who devours it in a few quick, hungry gulps. The knight skewers the rabbit's carcass on a green, freshly cut stick and sets it over the fire to roast. Soon the air is filled with the simple, mouth-watering aroma of cooking meat. The sound of the fat sizzling and popping as it drips into the flames is a beautiful, comforting music. It is the sound of a small, temporary victory over the hunger and hardship of the road. Kalen sits and watches the meat cook, turning the spit slowly to ensure it cooks evenly. The firelight dances on his battered armor, the warm orange glow a stark contrast to the cold gray steel. In this moment, he is not a knight. not a ghost of a forgotten war. He is just a man, cooking his breakfast over a fire, his faithful dog at his side. It is a moment of profound and simple peace. When the rabbit is cooked through, its skin golden brown and crispy, he pulls it from the fire. He lets it cool for a few moments. Then, using his knife, he carves off one of the hind legs for himself. He gives the rest of the carcass, the vast majority of the meat, to Fen. The wolf takes it gently in his jaws and carries it over to his spot by the edge of the clearing, where he begins to eat with a focused, ferocious intensity, the sound of crunching bone echoing softly in the quiet morning. Kalen eats his own portion slowly, savoring every bite. The meat is fresh, hot, and delicious, a welcome change from the bland, salty taste of his usual rations. He chews thoughtfully, his gaze distant. This simple meal is a perfect metaphor for his life. It is a moment of warmth and sustenance snatched from a world of cold and hunger. It is a meal earned not through conquest or glory, but through a quiet, trusting partnership. It is a meal shared between two lonely creatures, a knight who has lost his place in the world of men, and a wolf who has found his place alongside one. When he has finished, he licks his greasy fingers clean and stands up, the last remnants of his morning stiffness now gone, his belly full and warm. He is ready for the road. The symbiotic relationship has once again proven its worth. They have hunted, they have cooked, they have eaten, they have survived another morning together. With the fire extinguished for a second and final time, and the satisfying weight of a warm meal in his belly, Kalen turns his face towards the faint, overgrown track that serves as a road. He slings his saddlebags over his shoulder, settles the weight of his sword at his hip, and with a soft grunt, he begins to walk. Fen falls into step beside him, a silent gray shadow hugging his left leg. And so, their day truly begins. The next several hours are a long, slow meditation on the simple, rhythmic act of walking. There is a quiet, hypnotic music to their journey, a two-part harmony of footsteps. There is the heavy, rhythmic crunch and scuff of Kalen's worn leather boots on the gravel and dirt of the path. It is a solid, earthbound sound, the sound of a man carrying a great weight, both physical and spiritual. And woven around it is the second sound, or rather the lack of it. It is the soft, almost inaudible padding of Fen's paws on the ground. The wolf moves with an effortless, liquid grace, his paws seeming to kiss the earth rather than strike it. He is a creature of silence, a whisper of movement beside the man's loud, clumsy progress. Crunch, scuff, pad, pad. Crunch, scuff, pad, pad. This is the beat that will govern their world until dusk. Kalen walks with a steady, unhurried pace. His body leans slightly forward to counterbalance the weight of his gear. His stride is long and even, a practiced gait that can consume miles with minimal effort. His gaze is not fixed on the horizon, but on the path a few feet ahead of him, constantly scanning for loose stones, treacherous roots, or the telltale signs of a muddy patch. He is a man who lives in the immediate present, his focus narrowed to the next 10 steps. The landscape they pass through unfolds like a slow, painterly scroll. In the early morning, they descend into a low, misty valley. The air here is thick and cool, and the mist wraps around them like a soft gray blanket, muffling all sound. The world is reduced to a small, intimate circle of visibility. They are ghosts walking through a ghost's world, the great, dark shapes of ancient trees appearing and disappearing in the swirling fog. The only sound is their own footsteps and the steady drip of condensation falling from the unseen leaves above. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, it begins to burn away the mist, and the world opens up around them. They enter an ancient, moss-covered forest, a place that feels untouched by the hand of man. The trees here are impossibly old, their massive trunks like the pillars of a great green cathedral. Their branches form a thick, interlocking canopy high above, and the sunlight that filters through is dappled and green, painting shifting, hypnotic patterns on the forest floor. The air is still and smells of damp earth and growing things. It is a place of deep, profound peace, a place that feels older than any kingdom, older than any god. Kalen walks through this forest with a sense of quiet reverence. He feels like an intruder here, a brief, noisy interruption in a silence that has lasted for millennia. There are no monsters here, no goblins or orcs hiding in the shadows. There are no ambushes waiting around the next bend. The forest is not hostile. It is simply indifferent. It does not care about the knight or his quest or his sorrows. It simply is. And in its vast, silent indifference, Kalen finds a strange sort of comfort. His own problems, his own burdens seem small and insignificant in the face of such ancient, timeless grandeur. They emerge from the forest in the afternoon onto a landscape of gentle, rolling hills. The sky above is a vast, pale, washed-out blue, with a few lazy white clouds drifting on the soft breeze. The hills are covered in tall, waving grass, the color of old gold. Here, the world feels open and endless. Kalen can see for miles in every direction, and there is nothing to see but the endless, undulating sea of grass and the vast, empty sky. He feels profoundly small and profoundly alone, a single, tiny, armored figure moving through a vast, empty landscape. But he is not truly alone. He has his silent companion. Fen walks beside him, his demeanor changing with the landscape. In the misty valley, he was a tense, alert shadow, his ears constantly twitching, his nose to the ground. In the forest, he was more relaxed, trotting with a loose, easy gait, occasionally stopping to sniff at an interesting scent. And here, in the open hills, he seems to be filled with a quiet, joyful energy. He will sometimes range ahead, disappearing over the crest of a hill, only to reappear a few moments later, his tail held high, his golden eyes bright. He is not running away. He is scouting. He is expanding their perimeter, ensuring the way ahead is safe. He is a living, breathing extension of Kalen's own senses. This entire journey is a silent conversation between the man and the wolf. Kalen may be the one who chooses the path, but he is constantly reading the wolf's cues to understand the hidden language of the world around them. He notices when Fen's ears prick up and turn in a specific direction, a sign that the wolf has heard something that the man has not. He notices when the wolf's body goes tense and low to the ground, a clear signal of a potential threat or an unfamiliar scent on the wind. He notices the subtle changes in the wolf's pace, the way he carries his tail. Each of these small gestures is a piece of information, a vital report from his furry, four-legged scout. And in return, Fen is constantly reading the man. He can sense the knight's moods through the subtle changes in his scent, the almost imperceptible tensing of his muscles. He knows when the man is weary, when he is sad, when he is lost in a dark memory. On those days, the wolf will walk closer, his body occasionally brushing against the knight's leg, a simple physical gesture of reassurance. He is a living, breathing barometer of the knight's emotional state. They are two halves of a whole. The man provides the intellect, the purpose, the ability to make fire and to plan a route. The wolf provides the senses, the instinct, the deep primal connection to the natural world. Kaelin has long since forgotten what it is like to travel without this silent companion. The thought of walking this long, lonely road, truly alone, is an unbearable one. And so they walk on, under the vast, pale sky, their two sets of footsteps creating a steady, hypnotic rhythm on the open road. It is a simple life, a hard life, a lonely life. But in these long, quiet hours of walking, with the wind in the tall grass, and the silent, steady presence of his friend beside him, Kaelin sometimes finds something that feels almost like peace. To an outside observer, the man and the wolf move through the world in a profound and unending silence. Days can pass, long, wearying days of walking, without a single word being spoken by the night, nor a single bark or howl uttered by the direwolf. An observer might conclude that their journey is a lonely one, two separate beings trapped in their own isolated worlds, their paths merely coinciding out of convenience. But this conclusion would be deeply, fundamentally wrong. Kaelin and Fen are engaged in a constant, rich, and deeply nuanced conversation. It is simply a conversation that does not require sound. Theirs is a language deeper and more honest than words, a silent dialogue of posture, scent, and shared intuition, perfected over thousands of miles of road. Kaelin has learned to read Fen as a scholar reads an ancient and precious text. The wolf is his interpreter of the wild world, his scout, his early warning system. The key to this language lies in the wolf's ears. Those two sharp, dark triangles are the most expressive feature on the wolf's body, a pair of finely tuned instruments constantly gathering and analyzing information. When Fen's ears are relaxed, held slightly out to the side, it is a sign of peace and contentment. It means the world is as it should be. But when they prick up, sharp and focused, turning in a specific direction, Kaelin immediately takes note. This is the wolf's way of saying, "Listen, there is something there, a sound that does not belong." Kaelin will stop, his own senses straining to catch what the wolf has already detected. The distant clatter of a rock slide, the faint sound of an axe chopping wood, or the far-off shouting of men. The wolf's ears are his first line of defense against the unexpected. The carriage of Fen's tail is another crucial part of his vocabulary. A high, gently waving tail signifies confidence and curiosity. A tail held low, almost tucked between his legs, speaks of fear, submission, or uncertainty. But the most important signal is a tail held straight out, stiff and unmoving. This is a sign of aggression, a clear and unambiguous warning. It is Fen's way of saying there is a threat ahead, another predator. Be ready. Kalen has learned to trust this signal implicitly. It has saved his life on more than one occasion, alerting him to the presence of a lurking cave bear or a pack of hungry, less friendly wolves long before he would have seen them himself. Kalen also reads the wolf's entire body. He notices the subtle shift in Fenn's posture when he catches an interesting scent, his body going low and tense, his nose twitching. He has learned to distinguish between the scent of a deer, which causes the wolf to become focused and predatory, and the scent of something foul and unnatural, like an orc or a troll, which causes the fur on the wolf's back to bristle and a low, almost inaudible growl to rumble deep in his chest. Kalen has become fluent in this silent physical language. He can glance at the wolf and, in an instant, gain a complete and accurate understanding of their immediate surroundings. The wolf tells him what is over the next hill, what is hidden in the deep shadows of the forest, what has passed this way hours before them. Fenn is Kalen's eyes, his ears, and his nose, a living, breathing sensory extension that connects the dull-sensed human to the vibrant, secret life of the wild. And this communication is a two-way street. Fenn, in turn, reads Kalen with an equal, if not greater, degree of skill. His primary tool for understanding the night is his sense of smell. To Fenn, Kalen is a walking symphony of scents, each one telling a story about the man's emotional and physical state. When Kalen is at peace, he carries a calm, steady scent of leather, wool, and clean sweat. But when the night is troubled, lost in one of his dark, recurring memories, Fenn can smell the change. It is a sharp, acrid scent, the smell of fear and old sorrow, a chemical signature of distress. On those days, when the man's shoulders are slumped and his steps are heavy, Fenn will not range far ahead. He will walk close, his body often brushing against the knight's leg. It is his way of offering comfort, a silent physical reassurance that says, "I am here. You are not alone in this." He is the knight's anchor, pulling him back from the stormy seas of his own past. Fenn can also read the tension in Kalen's body. He can sense when the knight is on edge, when his hand rests more heavily on the hilt of his sword, when his gaze becomes more focused and intense. The wolf knows that this is a sign of potential human-made trouble ahead, a village known for its hostility, a crossroads frequented by bandits. In these moments, Fenn becomes the knight's shadow, his own body mirroring the man's tension. He becomes less a wild creature and more a trained soldier, his focus entirely on protecting his charge from the dangers of the world of man. This silent, intuitive understanding is the bedrock of their relationship. It is a bond far deeper than that of a master and his pet. It is a partnership of equals, a symbiotic relationship where each partner's strengths compensate for the other's weaknesses. Their communication is so seamless, so ingrained, that it has become as natural and unconscious as breathing. It is a language of pure honesty. A wolf cannot lie. He cannot fake courage or hide fear. His body tells the truth, always. And in a world full of the lies and deceptions of men, Kalen has come to rely on this brutal, unwavering honesty more than anything else. He trusts the twitch of Fenn's ear more than he would trust the sworn oath of a king. He finds more truth in the low growl of the wolf than in any holy book. And so they move on, two silent companions sharing a world of meaning in the spaces between words. They are a self-contained universe, a two-body system orbiting a common center of gravity.
Their silent conversation is a constant flowing river of information and reassurance, a quiet testament to the fact that the deepest connections are often the ones that are never spoken aloud.
The open road, for all its hardships, offers a kind of simple, honest purity. The rules are clear. Find food, find water, find shelter. But no man, not even one as solitary as Kalen, can survive on his own forever. The journey through the wild is punctuated by reluctant, necessary returns to the fringes of civilization. After several days of walking through the empty hills, Kalen spots it in the distance. A thin, gray plume of smoke rising into the pale afternoon sky. It is the unmistakable sign of a settlement, a small village huddled in a shallow valley. A feeling of quiet dread settles in his stomach. He needs supplies. His small bag of oats is nearly empty. His whetstone is worn smooth, and he has a growing craving for something that hasn't been cooked over an open fire. But the thought of interacting with other people, of navigating the complex, unspoken rules of a human community, fills him with a deep and weary anxiety. As they draw closer, he can make out the details of the village. It is not a prosperous place. It is a small, dreary collection of wattle and daub huts with sagging, thatched roofs. A crude wooden palisade, more of a fence than a true wall, encircles the settlement. The fields around it look thin and patchy. It is a village that seems to be perpetually bracing itself for a long, hard winter, regardless of the season. It has the weary, suspicious look of a place that has seen its fair share of trouble. About a quarter of a mile from the village, Kalen stops. He turns to Fen, who has already sensed the change in the knight's demeanor and has come to a halt beside him. Kalen places a hand on the wolf's head and looks him directly in the eye. "Wait here for me," he says, his voice a low, rough whisper. It is one of the few times he will speak aloud all day. The command is unnecessary. Fen understands. He knows the protocol. The wolf gives Kalen's gauntleted hand a single rough lick, then turns and, with his customary silence, melts back into the tree line at the edge of the woods. He will find a high, hidden spot from which he can watch the village, a silent, unseen guardian waiting for his companion's return. Kalen knows that to bring a direwolf into a village like this would be an act of profound foolishness. To him, Fen is a loyal friend, a noble companion. To these villagers, he would be a monster, a slavering beast from the dark woods, a harbinger of death and destruction. His presence would cause panic, fear, and would likely end with a mob of frightened, angry men armed with pitchforks and hunting spears. So, Kalen must go in. He adjusts the hang of his sword, pulls the cowl of his cloak further over his head, and begins the final approach to the village. As he walks, he can feel the eyes on him. A farmer working in the fields stops his work and leans on his hoe, his face a mask of dull, bovine suspicion. A woman drawing water from a well turns and stares, then quickly gathers her buckets and scurries back into her hut. By the time he reaches the simple, unguarded gate of the palisade, his arrival is already the subject of a dozen whispered conversations. He has become a ghost. He moves through the village with his head down, his gaze fixed on the muddy, rutted track that serves as the main street. He is acutely aware of his own appearance and how it must look to these simple, fearful folk. He is an object of contradiction, a puzzle they cannot solve. His armor, though battered and worn, is still clearly the armor of a knight. The quality of the steel, the craftsmanship of the plates, speaks of a wealth and status that is utterly alien to this place. But a true lord would not be traveling alone, on foot, with his armor in such a state of disrepair. A true lord would have a retinue, a banner, a fine horse. So he cannot be a lord. But he is also not a common mercenary. Mercenaries are usually boisterous, loud, and travel in groups. Kalen is silent, solitary, and carries himself with a quiet, sad dignity that is not for sale. So, if he is not a lord and not a mercenary, then what is he? An exile? A deserter? A man running from a dark past? The villagers do not know, and their uncertainty breeds fear. They give him a wide berth as he walks. Children who were playing a game in the street fall silent and run to hide behind their mother's skirts. Men who were gathered outside the single squalid-looking tavern stop their conversation and stare, their hands instinctively moving closer to the hilts of the long knives at their belts. Kalen feels their fear like a physical presence. It is a thick, unpleasant atmosphere, and he wishes he could be anywhere else. His interactions are brief, transactional, and minimal. He finds the village blacksmith, a large, sweaty man with soot-stained arms, and barters for a new whetstone. He does not haggle. He simply accepts the man's first price, pays for it, and moves on. He finds the small trading post, a dark, cluttered hut that smells of dried fish and damp wool, and purchases a small bag of oats and a handful of dried apples. He speaks only when necessary, his voice low and quiet. He does not smile. He does not attempt to make small talk. He is a ghost, a transient shadow passing through their lives. He is not here to make friends. He is here to acquire supplies. His only goal is to complete his business and leave as quickly and quietly as possible before their fear has a chance to curdle into aggression. He is a foreign object, an anomaly that has disturbed the fragile equilibrium of their small, isolated world, and he knows that the sooner he is gone, the sooner their world will return to normal. As he leaves the village, the same silent, suspicious eyes follow him. He does not look back. He keeps walking, his pace steady, his head bowed, until the last of the sad little huts has disappeared behind him. He does not feel relief until he is back in the tree line, back into the wild, familiar world of the forest. He gives a low, soft whistle. A moment later, Fen emerges from the shadows, his tail giving a few slow, happy thumps. The wolf pushes his great head into the knight's hand, his presence a warm, comforting antidote to the cold, suspicious atmosphere of the village. Kalen sinks to the ground, his back against a tree, and releases a long, slow breath he didn't realize he had been holding. The brief, necessary journey to the edge of civilization is over. He has what he needs. He is once again a ghost, a solitary knight on an endless road with only a wolf for company. And in this moment, he knows, with a profound and unshakable certainty, that he prefers it that way.
Inside the village, the air is thick with the smell of wood smoke, damp earth, and suspicion. Kalen moves like a shadow through the narrow, muddy lanes, his mission stripped down to a few essential objectives. He needs a new whetstone to keep an edge on his sword, and he needs to replenish his dwindling supply of oats, the simple, hardy grain that fuels so many of his meager meals. These are not luxuries. They are the fundamental necessities of his continued existence. He finds the blacksmith's forge first, drawn by the rhythmic, metallic clang of a hammer on an anvil and the acrid smell of hot iron. The smithy is a dark, open-fronted shed, its walls and ceiling blackened with the soot of 1,000 fires. The blacksmith is a massive man, his arms and chest a landscape of thick, corded muscle, his face perpetually shiny with sweat. He pauses his work as Kalen approaches, his hammer held loosely in his hand, his eyes wary. Kalen sees the whetstones laid out on a rough wooden bench, simple, rectangular blocks of gray stone. He points to one. "How much?" he asks, his voice low and gravelly from disuse. The blacksmith eyes the knight's battered armor, the longsword at his hip, and the deep weariness in his face. He sees a man who is clearly a fighter, but not a man who is clearly rich. He names a price, a few copper coins. It is a fair price, perhaps even a generous one, given the circumstances. But Kalen does not have a few copper coins to spare. His small leather pouch contains only a handful of silver pieces, currency from a kingdom half a continent away, and he guards these with a fierce desperation. They are for true emergencies, for buying passage across a river, for bribing a gate guard, for saving his own life. A whetstone does not qualify. So Kalen must turn to his other form of currency, a currency of memory and loss. He reaches into a small hidden pocket inside his tunic and pulls out a small cloth-wrapped bundle. He carefully unwraps it, the cloth worn soft with time, and reveals its contents. Lying in the palm of his gauntleted hand is a small silver clasp. It is, or was, the clasp from a heavy woolen cloak he once owned. The clasp is beautifully made, a relic from a time when he could afford such small, elegant things. It is fashioned in the shape of a stylized hawk in flight, its wings spread wide, its head turned as if catching a current of wind. The detail is exquisite. You can see the individual feathers carved into the wings, the sharp, piercing look in the bird's tiny eye. The silver is tarnished and dark with age, but it is of high quality, and it has a soft, lustrous sheen. This clasp is more than just a piece of silver. It is a piece of his past. It is a tangible link to a different life, a life of warmth and honor, a life lived within the high stone walls of a fortress he once called home. He can remember the weight of the cloak on his shoulders, the feel of the fine wool, the way this very clasp felt, cool and solid, under his fingers as he fastened it against a winter storm. He can remember the person who gave him that cloak, a memory that is now so distant and painful that he keeps it locked away in the deepest, darkest vault of his mind. To part with this clasp is to part with a small, essential piece of that memory. It is to tear another page out of the book of his former life and let it drift away on the wind. It is the price he must pay to keep walking down this lonely road. He holds it out to the blacksmith. "I have little coin," he says quietly. "Will you take this in trade for the stone and perhaps a small bag of oats from the trader?" The blacksmith puts down his hammer and takes the clasp. His thick, calloused fingers surprisingly gentle. He turns it over and over, his professional eye assessing the quality of the silver, the intricacy of the craftsmanship. He holds it up to the light of the forge, and for a moment, the silver hawk seems to almost glow, a small, bright thing in the dark, smoky smithy. The blacksmith is a simple man, a man of iron and fire, but he can recognize quality when he sees it. This is not the crude, functional metalwork he is used to. This is the work of a master, a piece of art from the world of lords and ladies. He looks from the beautiful clasp to the sad, solitary knight standing before him, and for a moment, a flicker of something akin to pity crosses his face. He knows, with a craftsman's intuition, that this object is worth far more than the items the knight is asking for. But he also knows that, in a village like this, its true value is meaningless. It is simply a piece of silver, something that can be melted down and reforged into something more useful, like a handful of nails or a simple ring. He gives a short, sharp nod. "Aye," he grunts, "it will do." He hands Kalen the whetstone and then jerks his head towards the trader's hut across the lane. Kalen feels a faint, almost imperceptible pang in his chest as he watches the blacksmith pocket the silver hawk. It is a feeling of loss, as if a small anchor that had been holding him to his own past has just been cut loose. He is a little more adrift now, a little more of a ghost. But he is also a little more equipped to survive. He gives the blacksmith a curt nod of thanks, his face betraying no emotion, and walks away. He has made the trade. He has bartered a piece of his soul for a stone to sharpen his sword and a meal to fill his belly. It is the grim, ongoing transaction of his life. He collects his oats from the grumpy, rheumy-eyed trader, who accepts the blacksmith's word without question, and then he leaves the village without a backward glance. He does not want to linger in this place of suspicion and judgment. As he walks back towards the woods, back towards the silent, waiting presence of his only true companion, his hand unconsciously goes to the spot on his tunic where the clasp used to be. He can still feel the faint weight of it, the ghost of a memory. It is the price of the past, a price he must pay again and again, shedding pieces of himself along the way, all to purchase just a few more days on this endless open road.
The oppressive, judgmental atmosphere of the village dissolves behind him like a bad dream, replaced by the clean, familiar silence of the forest. Kalen walks until the last sounds and smells of civilization have faded completely, until the only world that exists is the one made of trees, stone, and open sky. He finds a small, secluded glen, a place where the afternoon sun filters through the leaves in warm, golden shafts, and there he finally allows himself to stop. His first thought is not of himself, not of the new whetstone in his pack or the satisfying weight of the bag of oats. His first duty, as always, is to his companion. He gives the low, soft whistle, the signal he used that morning. It is a sound of safety, a sound that says, the trial is over, it is safe to return. For a moment, there is only silence. Then, a shadow detaches itself from the deeper shadows of the woods, and Fen emerges, padding silently into the glen. The wolf approaches Kalen and immediately pushes his great head into the knight's chest, a gesture of profound greeting and relief. He sniffs at the knight's tunic, his sensitive nose reading the entire story of the village visit. The smell of the blacksmith's forge, the strange dusty scent of the trader's hut, and the faint, lingering aroma of other humans and their livestock.
Kalen wraps an arm around the wolf's thick neck, his gauntleted fingers sinking into the deep fur. "It is done, my friend," he murmurs. "All is well." The tension that had been coiled in Kalen's shoulders since he'd first spotted the village finally begins to unwind. He is home. Or rather, he is with the only thing that has ever truly felt like home. Now, the second ritual of the day begins, one as ingrained and important as the breaking of camp. It is the care of the companion. Kalen gestures to a patch of soft green moss, and Fen, with a soft, compliant sigh, lies down. The wolf rests his head on his paws, his golden eyes watching the night with an expression of complete and utter trust. Kalen kneels beside him. He does not begin with a playful roughhousing or a hearty pat. His approach is methodical, gentle, and deeply focused. It is the approach of a healer, of a caretaker whose responsibilities are taken with the utmost seriousness. He starts with the pause. The road is hard and unforgiving, and a lame wolf is a death sentence for them both. He gently takes one of Fen's massive front paws into his hands. The paw is the size of a grown man's fist, with thick, leathery pads and formidable, non-retractable black claws. Kalen's touch is surprisingly delicate. He runs his thumb over the pads, checking for any cuts, scrapes, or embedded stones. His fingers probe gently between the toes, searching for thorns, burrs, or any sign of irritation. Fen lies perfectly still during this examination, accustomed to the routine. He might occasionally give a soft lick to Kalen's hand, but he does not pull away. He understands that this is an act of care. Finding nothing amiss on the first paw, Kalen moves to the next, and then to the hind paws, performing the same meticulous inspection. It is a slow, patient process, a silent conversation of trust and responsibility. Once he is satisfied that the wolf's feet are sound, he moves on to the fur. From a small pouch, he produces one of his few non-essential possessions, a wide-toothed comb carved from a piece of smooth, dark yew wood. He made it himself during a long, snowbound winter spent in a ruined watchtower, a small project to keep his hands and mind from going idle. It is one of his most prized possessions. He begins to comb through Fen's thick, dark coat, starting at the neck and working his way down the wolf's powerful back. The fur is a complex, two-layered thing, a coarse, weather-resistant outer coat of guard hairs and a soft, dense, insulating undercoat. The comb moves slowly, gently, working out any tangles or knots. Its main purpose, however, is to find and remove the many burrs, twigs, and bits of forest debris that have become embedded in the fur during their travels. When he finds a burr, he does not yank at it. He works patiently, using the comb and his fingers to gently tease the tangled fur apart until the offending piece of vegetation can be removed without pulling or causing the wolf pain. Fen seems to enjoy this part of the ritual immensely. He closes his eyes and leans into the comb's gentle scraping. A low, rumbling purr, a sound more commonly associated with a house cat than a direwolf, vibrating deep in his chest. It is a sound of pure contentment. This quiet, domestic act is a stark contrast to the image Kalen presents to the world. To the villagers, he was a figure of fear and suspicion, a hard man in battered steel. But here, in the quiet solitude of the forest, kneeling beside his companion, he is a different person entirely. He is gentle, he is tender, he is a man capable of a deep and quiet affection. The bond between them is not simply one of mutual survival, it is one of genuine care. The wolf is not just a tool, not just a weapon or a hunting dog. He is a friend, a family member, the last living creature in the world that Kalen truly loves. And this meticulous grooming is how he shows it. He finishes combing the wolf's back and sides, and then moves on to the great bushy tail, and finally to the thick ruff around his neck. When he is done, he has a small pile of burrs and leaves on the ground beside him. Fenn's coat is smooth and clean, restored to its natural wild beauty. The wolf, feeling the night's work is done, rolls onto his back, exposing his belly and giving a soft, playful groan. This is a rare moment of levity, a silent invitation. Kalen accepts. He puts the comb away and uses his bare hands to give the wolf a vigorous, joyful belly rub, his fingers scratching at the spots he knows the wolf loves best. Fenn's back leg begins to thump uncontrollably against the ground, his mouth open in a silent, wolfish grin. For a few brief, precious moments, the grim, weary night disappears completely, replaced by a man playing with his dog. When the moment passes, Fenn rolls back onto his stomach, and Kalen sits back on his heels, a faint, genuine smile gracing his lips. The ritual is complete. His first duty has been fulfilled. The wolf is safe, he is clean, and he is happy. Kalen knows that his own survival is inextricably linked to the well-being of this magnificent creature. But more than that, he knows that the care he shows the wolf is also a way of caring for himself. It is a way of holding on to a small piece of his own humanity, a reminder that even in the midst of a hard and lonely life, there is still room for tenderness, for loyalty, and for a quiet, unspoken love.
As the afternoon sun begins its long, slow descent, casting long golden fingers of light through the trees, a different kind of quiet settles over the small glen. Fenn, content and well-groomed, has curled up for a nap in a patch of warm sunlight, his breathing deep and even. The forest is peaceful. For Kalen, however, the day's work is not yet done. Having tended to the needs of his companion, he must now turn his attention to the needs of his other, colder and far more demanding partner, his steel. This is a ritual he performs almost every evening, a lonely, meditative practice that is as essential to his survival as food or water. It is the care of his tools, the maintenance of the very things that define him as a knight, even in his self-imposed exile. He begins with the sword. He sits with his back against a sturdy oak, his legs crossed, and draws the longsword from its worn leather scabbard. The sound of the steel sliding free is a soft, musical hiss, a sound that awakens a host of dark memories. He lays the sword across his lap. It is a plain, functional weapon, a hand-and-a-half bastard sword with a simple crossguard and a leather-wrapped hilt. Like his armor, it is a tool, not an ornament. The blade is scarred and nicked in several places, each imperfection a silent testament to a past desperate parry. He takes out the new whetstone he acquired in the village. He spits on its surface, a small, practical act to lubricate the stone, and then he begins. He places the stone at the base of the blade, and with a steady, practiced motion, he draws it along the edge, all the way to the tip. He maintains a perfect, consistent angle, his wrist locked, his arm moving with a fluid, controlled grace. The sound it makes is a sharp, rhythmic, almost hypnotic shing, shing, shing. It is a sound of pure focus, the sound of steel being brought back to life. This is not a task to be rushed. He works slowly, methodically, his entire being concentrated on the feel of the stone against the steel. He is not just sharpening a tool, he is engaging in a silent dialogue with the blade. He feels the small imperfections, the tiny nicks and burrs, and he works patiently to smooth them out, to restore the clean, keen edge. The rhythmic, repetitive motion is a form of meditation. It allows his mind to quiet, to focus on a single, tangible task. The worries of the road, the ghosts of his past, all fade into the background, replaced by the simple, satisfying reality of the whetstone and the steel. As he works, the smell of hot metal, a sharp, clean, metallic scent, fills the air. It is a smell that is intrinsically linked to his identity. It is the smell of the training yard of his youth, the smell of the armory, the smell of battle. It is the smell of his knighthood. He sharpens one side of the blade, then flips it over and begins on the other, his movements identical, perfectly mirrored. The shing, shing, shing continues, a lonely, percussive song in the quiet glen. It is the sound of a man tending to his purpose. Though he may live the life of a wanderer, of a ghost, this simple act connects him to the vow he once made. A knight's sword must be sharp, ready to defend the weak, ready to uphold justice. He may have no one to defend but himself and his wolf, and the only justice he may find is the swift, clean end of a hunt. But the principle remains. The vow, however tarnished and forgotten by the world, still lives within him, and it lives in the keen edge of this blade. When he is satisfied that the edge is as sharp as he can make it, he takes out a small oily rag and carefully wipes the blade clean, removing the fine metal filings. He holds the sword up, angling it to catch the fading sunlight. The edge glints with a faint, deadly light. It is ready. He slides the sword back into its scabbard with a soft, final thunk. His next task is the chainmail. Rust is the eternal enemy of mail, a creeping, insidious cancer that can weaken the tiny, interlocking rings and render the armor useless. Every few days, he must perform the tedious but vital task of oiling it. He removes the heavy hauberk and lays it out on the grass. He takes his oily rag and begins to work the oil into the metal, rubbing vigorously. It is a dirty, messy, and deeply unsatisfying job. The oil blackens his hands and stains his clothes. The chainmail is a vast, complex web of thousands of rings, and he must try to get a thin, protective coating on every single one. He works in sections, rubbing and polishing, his arms growing weary with the effort. As he works, his fingers trace the patched-together sections, the places where he has had to repair the mail himself.
This armor has saved his life more times than he can count, and this tedious, greasy ritual is how he repays it. It is an act of gratitude, a quiet thanks to the inanimate object that has served as his second, harder skin. When he is finished, the mail has a dark, greasy sheen, and the air is thick with the smell of old iron and oil. The rust has been held at bay for another few days. He dons the heavy, freshly oiled hauberk, the cold, greasy feel of it a familiar discomfort. The ritual is almost complete. He gives the rest of his plate armor a quick wipe down, checking the leather straps for wear and tear, ensuring that every buckle is secure. He is a craftsman tending to his tools, a priest tending to his relics. This lonely evening ritual is a fundamental part of who he is. It is a discipline, a structure in a life that has none. It is a connection to his past, a physical manifestation of his vows, and it is a preparation for the future, an acknowledgement that the peace of this quiet glen is only temporary. The world is a dangerous place. His steel is his only true security. It is his shield, his weapon, his last line of defense against the chaos that lies just beyond the firelight. As the last of the sun's light fades from the sky, and the deep, velvety darkness of night begins to settle over the forest, Kalen sits in quiet contemplation. His work is done. His companion is safe. His steel is ready. He is as prepared as a man can ever be for the uncertainties of tomorrow. The night and his tools are one. The peace of the glen, hard-won through the quiet rituals of the evening, is not destined to last. Kalen is a man who has learned to read the world with the same focus he gives his whetstone, and as dusk begins to bleed into true night, he senses. It is not a sound or a sight, but a feeling, a subtle shift in the air that speaks of a coming disturbance. The true adversaries on the open road are rarely the orcs of story or the bandits of legend. More often, the most dangerous, most relentless foe is the sky itself. The first sign is the wind. All afternoon, a gentle, lazy breeze had been stirring the leaves of the trees, but now that breeze has died away completely, leaving behind a strange, heavy, and unnatural stillness. The air becomes thick and oppressive, and the usual chorus of evening birdsong falls silent. It is as if the entire forest is holding its breath, waiting. Kalen stands up and turns his face to the west. The sky in that direction, which had been a clear, soft violet just a short while ago, is now being consumed by a deep, bruised, purple-gray darkness that is spreading across the horizon like a stain. There is no dramatic rolling thunderhead, just a slow, silent, inexorable creep of shadow, eating the last of the day's light. Then comes the change in the air's scent. The familiar earthy smell of the forest floor is suddenly overlaid with a new, sharp, and distinct aroma. It is the smell of petrichor, the clean, electric scent of rain on dry earth, a smell that promises both life-giving water and violent, destructive power. Fen senses it too. The wolf, who had been dozing peacefully, is now on his feet, his body tense, his nose raised high, tasting the changing wind. He lets out a low, soft whine, a sound of deep unease. He looks at Kalen, his golden eyes wide with a silent question.
Kalen places a hand on the wolf's neck, a gesture of reassurance. But his own eyes are scanning their surroundings with a newfound urgency. This is not going to be a gentle night shower. This is going to be a storm, and they are caught in the open, exposed and vulnerable. Their pace, which had been leisurely for the past few hours, now quickens. It is not a panicked run, but a swift, purposeful stride. Panic is a luxury Kalen cannot afford. It clouds the mind and leads to foolish mistakes. What is needed now is a quiet, focused urgency, a race against the approaching darkness and the coming deluge. He must read the landscape, assess his options, and make a decision quickly. He knows that to be caught in the open during a heavy downpour is not just an inconvenience, it can be a death sentence. A thorough soaking can leach the warmth from his body, leading to a debilitating chill that can turn to sickness. His meager supply of firewood would be rendered useless. His bedroll, his only source of comfort, would become a heavy, sodden sponge. Their survival depends entirely on their ability to find shelter, and to find it now. They move through the deepening twilight, a two-man army in a strategic retreat. Kalen's eyes dart back and forth, no longer appreciating the beauty of the woods, but analyzing it for its tactical potential. He looks for a thick grove of pine trees whose dense needles might offer some meager protection. He scans the hillsides for a rocky outcrop or a shallow cave that might provide a dry haven. Every feature of the landscape is now either an asset or a liability. The wind begins to pick up, no longer a gentle breeze, but a series of strong, sudden gusts that moan through the trees and whip at his cloak. The branches of the ancient oaks begin to sway and groan, their leaves making a sound like a restless, rushing sea. The world, which had been so still and silent just a short while ago, is now filled with a sense of chaotic, rising energy. And then, the first drop of rain falls. It is a single, cold, heavy drop that lands on Kalen's cheek, feeling less like water and more like a small icy stone. A few seconds later, another one hits his gauntlet with a soft splat, then another and another. The first scattered shots of the coming storm have arrived. The race has become more desperate. The rain begins to fall in earnest now, not a gentle shower, but a hard, driving downpour. The drops are thick and cold, and they quickly soak his cloak, the heavy wool becoming a leaden weight on his shoulders. The soft, dusty path turns to a slick, treacherous mud, and he has to shorten his stride to keep his footing. The sound of the rain is a deafening roar, a constant, hissing static that drowns out all other sounds. They are walking through a world of gray, rushing water, their visibility reduced to only a few feet. Fen walks close beside him, his head bowed, his dark fur plastered to his body. The wolf is miserable, but he does not falter. He trusts the man to lead them to safety. Kalen is beginning to feel a cold knot of real fear tightening in his stomach. The options are dwindling. The forest offers no real protection against a storm of this intensity. He is on the verge of resigning himself to a long, cold, and utterly wretched night when he sees it. Through the thick gray curtain of the rain, he spies a dark, jagged shape ahead of them, a silhouette that is too angular, too unnatural to be a part of the forest. It is a man-made structure. Hope, a feeling he rarely allows himself to indulge, flares in his chest. He changes his direction,
his boots slipping and sliding in the mud, and makes his way towards the dark shape. As he gets closer, he can see that it is a ruin, the crumbling, vine-choked remains of some long-forgotten building. It might have been an old watchtower, or a small chapel, or the hunting lodge of a forgotten lord. It doesn't matter what it was. All that matters now is what it is now, a promise of shelter. With a final desperate burst of energy, he half runs, half slides the last few yards and stumbles through a collapsed section of wall, out of the driving rain and into the relative quiet of the ruin. The sound of the storm is immediately muffled, replaced by the soft, steady drumming of the rain on the stones above them. They have made it. They have won their race against the true adversary. And for now, at least, they are safe.
The moment they step through the collapsed archway and out of the driving rain, the world changes. The violent, chaotic roar of the storm is instantly muted, replaced by a softer, more rhythmic drumming sound as the rain hammers down on the ancient stones above and around them. The wind still howls outside, a mournful, lonely sound, but here, inside the crumbling walls, its power is broken. It is a wild beast raging against the bars of a cage, unable to touch them. A profound sense of relief washes over Kalen, so potent and so sudden that it almost makes his knees buckle. He leans back against a solid stone wall, the cold, rough texture a grounding, reassuring presence, and allows himself a long, slow exhalation of breath. They are safe. They are dry. And in that moment, this small, ruined space feels more luxurious, more welcoming than any king's hall. The ruin is not much. It is the skeletal remains of a small, square building, perhaps an old border watchtower or a secluded chapel for a forgotten order of monks. 3 of the stone walls are mostly intact, though choked with thick, dark ivy. The 4th wall has crumbled away, leaving a gaping hole through which they entered. The roof is long gone, surrendered to centuries of wind and rain. But a few massive, petrified oak beams still stretch across the top, and in one corner, a section of the upper floor has miraculously held, creating a small, solid ceiling of stone and rotting wood. It is this small corner that is their sanctuary. The space is dark, smelling of damp earth, wet stone, and decaying leaves. The floor is a cluttered mess of fallen rubble and dirt, but it is dry, and in this raging storm, dry is the only form of comfort that matters. Fen, his dark fur plastered to his body and dripping with water, immediately begins to shake himself vigorously, sending a shower of icy droplets flying in every direction. Kalen flinches but doesn't complain. The wolf then finds the driest spot he can, circles it 3 times out of ancient, ingrained habit, and then collapses onto the ground with a deep, contented sigh, his body a tired, furry puddle. Kalen allows himself a small, weary smile. He removes his own soaked, heavy cloak and wrings it out as best he can, then spreads it over a fallen block of stone to dry. He unbuckles his sword belt and leans his longsword against the wall. For the first time all day, he feels he can truly stand down from his alert posture. The storm,
which had been their adversary just moments before, has now become their protector. The constant rhythmic drumming of the rain on the stones is no longer a threat, but a comforting, hypnotic blanket of sound. It isolates them from the rest of the world, creating a small, secure pocket of existence. The sound is a lullaby, a steady, soothing rhythm that promises safety and peace. No one, man or beast, will be traveling on a night like this. They are utterly, completely alone. And for Kalen, that is the purest form of security. As his eyes adjust to the deep gloom, he begins to take in the details of their temporary home. He runs a gauntleted hand over the stone wall he is leaning against. The stones are massive, perfectly cut and fitted together with a skill that has long since vanished from the world. Even after centuries of neglect, the wall feels incredibly solid, a testament to the pride and craftsmanship of its long-dead builders. He can see faint traces of old plaster clinging to the stones in places, and he wonders what this place looked like in its prime. Was it a grim, functional watchtower, its walls lined with weapon racks and its air thick with the smell of unwashed soldiers? Or was it a quiet, contemplative chapel, its walls adorned with holy tapestries, the air filled with the scent of incense and the sound of chanted prayers? He looks at the thick, gnarled ivy that covers everything, its roots digging deep into the mortar between the stones, slowly, patiently, and inexorably pulling the work of man apart. It is a quiet, slow-motion battle between civilization and nature, and it is clear which side is winning. He feels a strange sense of kinship with the ghosts of this place. He pictures a lone soldier standing watch on a cold, rainy night just like this one, staring out into the darkness, feeling the same bone-deep chill, the same sense of profound loneliness. He pictures a solitary monk kneeling on the cold stone floor, seeking a moment of peace and connection to something greater than himself. They were lonely souls, just as he is a lonely soul. They found a moment's shelter in this small, sturdy building, just as he has. He feels a connection to them across the vast, silent chasm of the centuries. He is just another wanderer, another ghost passing through, adding his own brief, fleeting story to the long, silent history of these stones. This feeling does not make him sad. On the contrary, it brings him a strange sort of comfort. It reminds him that his own struggles, his own sorrows, are not unique. Others have stood where he stands, have felt what he feels. The thought makes his own burden feel a little lighter. He is a part of a long, unbroken chain of weary travelers finding a moment of grace in a forgotten ruin. He is not the first, and he will not be the last. With the immediate threat of the storm abated, a sense of peace settles over him, so deep and so profound that it feels almost like a physical presence. The world has been reduced to this small, dry, stone-walled space. Outside, the storm rages, a symphony of wind and water, but inside, there is only the quiet breathing of a man and his wolf, and the steady, comforting drumbeat of the rain. He has found sanctuary, not in a holy temple or a king's fortress, but here in the humble, crumbling embrace of a ruin. It is a moment of unexpected grace, a small,
perfect jewel found in the heart of a violent storm. And for a man who expects so little from the world, it is more than enough.
The sanctuary of the ruin, though dry, is steeped in a deep, penetrating cold. The stone walls, soaked by the relentless rain, seem to radiate a damp chill that seeps into Kylan's bones. He knows that if they are to be truly comfortable, truly safe for the night, they will need a fire. He sets about the task with a quiet efficiency, his movements sure and practiced in the deep gloom. He searches the cluttered floor of the ruin, his eyes scanning for any scrap of dry fuel. He finds a small pile of fallen twigs and leaves in a sheltered corner, miraculously preserved from the damp. He finds a piece of a rotted wooden beam, its surface damp, but its core dry and punky. It is not much, but it will have to be enough. He arranges his meager findings in the center of the floor, creating a small, carefully constructed pyre. He takes out his flint and steel once more and kneels down, shielding the nascent fire with his own body. The first few sparks die without catching, fizzling out in the damp air. But Kylan is patient. He strikes again and again, a tiny, rhythmic clinking in the vast, drumming silence of the ruin. Finally, a single, stubborn spark catches on a piece of dried moss, and a tiny, fragile flame springs to life. He nurtures it with the care of a new father, blowing gently, adding the smallest twigs one by one, until the flame is strong enough to catch on the larger pieces of rotted wood. A small, cheerful fire begins to crackle, a defiant point of orange and yellow light in the oppressive darkness. The fire is a living thing, and it transforms the space completely. The cold, menacing shadows retreat to the corners of the ruin, held at bay by the circle of warm light. The firelight dances on the ancient, weeping stone walls, making them seem to glow with a soft, warm, golden light. The grim, crumbling ruin is transformed into a cozy, intimate hearth. The mood is one of profound peace and security. With the storm raging outside and the fire crackling inside, their small corner of the world feels like the safest place in existence. Kylan settles himself down, with his back against the solid stone wall, his legs stretched out towards the delicious warmth of the flames. The heat begins to seep into his clothes, chasing away the deep chill, and a feeling of deep physical contentment spreads through his weary limbs. It is time for the evening meal. There is no fresh hunted rabbit tonight. The meal is a simple, Spartan affair, the typical fare of the road. He takes out the hard, dark loaf of bread he has been carrying for days. It is stale, but it is filling. He breaks off a chunk and begins to chew it slowly, its coarse texture scraping against his palate. He takes out a small strip of salted dried meat from his pack, chewing on the tough, flavorful jerky. He washes it all down with a few sips of the cold, metallic-tasting water from his water skin. It is not a feast, but it is enough. It is fuel. It is sustenance.
and eaten here in the warm, secure glow of the fire, it feels like the most satisfying meal he has ever had. Fen, who has been watching the fire with a mesmerized, intelligent gaze, eats his own meal of dried meat, his powerful jaws making short work of the tough ration. When they are both finished, a deep, comfortable silence settles between them, broken only by the crackle of a fire and the steady, rhythmic drumming of the rain outside. The true purpose of the fire, Kylan knows, is not just for cooking or for warmth. It is for companionship. The fire is the third member of their party, a living, breathing presence that fills the silence and wards off the loneliness of the long, dark night. And it is in this moment, in the shared warmth and the flickering light, that the emotional heart of their journey is revealed. Fen, his own meal finished, rises from his spot and pads over to Kylan. He does not sit beside him. He lies down at the knight's feet. Then, with a soft, contented sigh, he rests his great, heavy head directly on Kylan's lap. The weight is substantial, a solid, reassuring pressure on the knight's legs. The fur of the wolf's head is thick and warm, and Kylan can feel the gentle, rhythmic puff of the wolf's breath against his hand. This is the moment. This is the culmination of their silent, day-long conversation. It is an act of pure, unconditional trust. For a direwolf, a creature of immense power and wild instinct, to place its head in the lap of another is the ultimate gesture of vulnerability and submission. It is Fen's way of saying, "You are my alpha. You are my pack. With you, I am completely safe." Kylan responds in the only way he knows how. He begins to stroke the wolf's head, his fingers moving in a slow, steady rhythm, tracing the powerful lines of the wolf's skull, scratching gently behind the great furry ears. The wolf closes his golden eyes, a deep, soft rumble of a purr vibrating through his entire body and up into the knight's hand. This is the moment. This is the culmination of their silent, day-long conversation. It is an act of pure, unconditional trust. For a direwolf, a creature of immense power and wild instinct, to place its head in the lap of another is the ultimate gesture of vulnerability and submission. It is Fen's way of saying, "You are my alpha. You are my pack. With you, I am completely safe." Kylan responds in the only way he knows how. He begins to stroke the wolf's head, his fingers moving in a slow, steady rhythm, tracing the powerful lines of the wolf's skull, scratching gently behind the great furry ears. The wolf closes his golden eyes, a deep, soft rumble of a purr vibrating through his entire body and up into the knight's hand. In this small, simple gesture, there is a universe of unspoken emotion. It is a moment of pure, quiet companionship, a perfect symbiosis of trust and care. Here, in the heart of a raging storm, inside the forgotten ruins of a lost age, these two solitary beings have created their own small, perfect world. The man, a knight who has lost his kingdom, and the wolf, a creature who has found his. They are two halves of a single soul, finding solace and completion in each other's presence. There is no need for words. What could words possibly add to a moment as profound and as honest as this? The flickering firelight paints dancing shadows on their faces, on the scarred, weary face of the man and the noble, peaceful face of the wolf. Outside, the world can rage. Inside, there is only this, the shared warmth, the steady breathing, the quiet trust. It is a moment of grace, a fleeting, beautiful stillness in a life of constant motion. And as Kylan sits there, with the weight of his companion's head in his lap, the sound of the fire and the rain a gentle lullaby, the heavy burden of his armor, of his past, of his knighthood, feels, for the first time in a very long time, just a little bit lighter.
Hours pass in the warm, quiet dark of the ruin. The small fire burns down, its cheerful crackle softening to a gentle, hypnotic hiss. The relentless, drumming roar of the rain on the stones above begins to lessen, its rhythm slowing, the spaces between the drops growing longer. The storm, having spent its fury, is beginning to tire. Kylan has been dozing, his head lolling against the cold stone wall, his hand still resting on Fenn's sleeping head. He hasn't been truly asleep, but in a state of deep, peaceful twilight, suspended in the comforting space between consciousness and dreams. What finally pulls him back to full awareness is not a sound, but a change in the quality of the light. A new, different kind of light begins to filter into their dark sanctuary. It is not the warm, flickering orange of the firelight. It is a cold, pure, and incredibly clear silver light, and it is coming from above. He lifts his head, his stiff neck protesting, and looks up. Through the large, gaping hole in the roof where the storm had once raged, the sky is now clear. The storm clouds have broken and scattered, and the vast black canvas of the night sky has been revealed, and it is filled with stars. They are not the faint, hazy stars one might see from a city or a town. Here, in the deep, clean air of the wilderness, far from any man-made light, the stars are a breathtaking, overwhelming spectacle. They are a spill of countless glittering diamonds on a bolt of black velvet. There are so many of them that they seem to merge, forming great, milky rivers of light that flow across the heavens. They do not twinkle. They burn with a fierce, steady, and impossibly ancient light. Kylan stares up at them, his breath caught in his throat. The ruin no longer feels like a confining shelter. It has become an observatory. The collapsed roof is no longer a sign of decay, but a perfect, jagged window into infinity. He is looking at the true ceiling of his world, a ceiling of fire and silence and unimaginable distance. As he stares up at this cosmic grandeur, a profound sense of scale washes over him. He feels his own smallness in a way that is both terrifying and deeply comforting. His own life, his own struggles, his own sorrows, the lost honor, the broken vows, the long, weary miles, they all seem so incredibly insignificant in the face of this silent, celestial majesty. The stars do not know his name. They do not care about his quest,
his pain, or his lonely existence. They have been burning for eons before he was born, and they will continue to burn for eons after he and his memory have turned to dust. This realization is not a source of despair. It is a source of profound liberation. If his problems are so small, so fleeting, then perhaps the weight he carries is not as heavy as he has always believed. Perhaps he is not the central figure in a grand tragic play. Perhaps he is just a tiny, momentary speck of consciousness, a brief flicker of life in a universe that is vast, ancient, and utterly indifferent. And in that indifference, he finds a strange kind of freedom. He is not a glorious hero on a noble quest. The stories and the songs have it all wrong. The life of a hero is not one of shining armor and triumphant battles. It is one of cold nights, empty bellies, and the constant gnawing ache of loneliness. He is not a hero, nor is he a tragic figure, a fallen king from a sad old tale. His tragedy is too small, too personal to be worthy of a story. He has not lost a kingdom, he has simply lost his way. His pain is not the stuff of epics, it is the quiet, mundane pain of regret and weariness. He is not special, he is simply a man who has made mistakes, a man who is tired, a man who is trying, in his own quiet, flawed way, to survive. He looks down at the great, sleeping wolf in his lap. Fenn's breathing is deep and regular, the picture of peaceful, untroubled rest. The silver starlight filtering through the roof catches the tips of his dark fur, giving him a faint, ethereal halo. And Kalen understands that while he may be small and insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe, he is not entirely alone in his own small, insignificant world. He has this quiet, steadfast companionship. He has this unwavering loyalty. He has this warm, breathing presence that has chosen, for reasons Kalen will never fully comprehend, to share his lonely road. In a life stripped of all its former glories, this simple, profound connection is the one true thing he has left. It is his only treasure, his only kingdom, his only faith. The stars do not offer him answers. They do not offer him salvation or forgiveness. They offer him only perspective. They remind him that the world is so much larger, so much older, and so much more mysterious than his own small sorrows. They invite him to let go of the grand, heavy narrative of his own life, and to simply be present in this one quiet, perfect moment. And so he does. He leans his head back against the cold, ancient stone. He does not think about tomorrow's road. He does not think about yesterday's regrets. He simply watches the slow, majestic procession of the stars across the sky, feeling the steady, rhythmic breathing of the wolf in his lap, and listening to the soft, gentle hiss of the last dying embers of his fire. He is Kalen. He is a man, and he is not alone. And under the vast, silent, star-dusted ceiling of the world, for the first time in a very long time, that feels like enough. The grand, silent spectacle of the stars continues its slow, majestic journey across the sky.
But Kaelin's watch is coming to an end. The perspective granted by the cosmos, the quiet comfort of his companion's presence, and the deep, bone-deep weariness of the long day have finally conspired to grant him peace. The last vestiges of tension in his body, the knots of anxiety and sorrow he carries in his shoulders and his heart, begin to dissolve, melting away into the cool, quiet air of the ruin. His eyelids grow heavy, the brilliant, burning points of starlight beginning to blur and soften at the edges. The weight of his own head becomes too much to bear, and he lets it loll back against the solid, unyielding stone of the ancient wall. It is not a comfortable pillow, but it is steady, and in its cold, hard permanence there is a kind of security. He has been claimed. The gentle, inexorable tide of sleep which he has held back for so long finally washes over him, pulling him away from the shore of the waking world. He does not fight it. He surrenders to it gratefully, a tired soldier finally relieved of his post. He drifts into a deep, profound, and dreamless sleep, the kind of sleep that is not an escape, but a reward. It is the sleep of the justly weary, a rest that has been earned through long miles, hard labor, and a quiet, steadfast endurance. As he sleeps, his posture softens. The grim, guarded set of his jaw relaxes. The faint lines of worry around his eyes seem to smooth out. In sleep, he is no longer the knight, the ghost, the wanderer. He is just a man, vulnerable and at peace, his face illuminated by the soft, silvery light of the stars and the last faint, pulsing glow of the fire's embers. He is not, however, unguarded. As the man's consciousness fades, the wolf's stirs. Fen has been dozing, his sleep light and shallow, but now, as he feels the complete relaxation of the man's body, the deep, steady rhythm of his breathing, the wolf's sense of duty reawakens. He lifts his great head from Kaelin's lap with a quiet, fluid motion. He does not stand. He simply repositions himself, curling his massive body tightly against the knight's side, creating a living wall of warmth and fur. He rests his head on his paws once more, but his golden eyes are now open, alert, and watchful. The second watch has begun. The wolf's gaze sweeps the darkness, his ears twitching, his nose sampling the cool night air. The storm has passed completely, leaving behind a world that is clean, quiet, and still. He can hear the gentle dripping of water from the ivy leaves outside, a soft, rhythmic patter that is all that remains of the storm's fury. He can smell the damp earth, the wet stone, and the clean, cold scent of the distant stars. The world is calm. The world is safe. His man is asleep. Fen lets out a long, silent sigh of contentment and settles in for his long, quiet vigil. He will watch over the man, guarding his rest, until the first pale light of dawn begins to touch the sky. This is the unwritten law of their partnership, the silent pact that binds them together. One is the sword, the other is the shield. One is the mind, the other is the senses. One finds the path, the other watches for its dangers. They are a self-contained ecosystem, a perfect, balanced whole. The cycle of the road is endless. Tomorrow, the sun will rise, and the ritual will begin anew. There will be the breaking of camp, the arming, the long, weary miles of walking. The road will still be hard, and the world will still be a lonely, unforgiving place. There will be new challenges, new hardships, new moments of doubt and despair. But that is tomorrow, and tomorrow is a world away. Tonight, there is only this. There is only this small, quiet sanctuary, a forgotten ruin that has for one night become a home. There is the profound, deep silence of the forest after a storm. There is the soft, silver light of the stars pouring down through the broken roof like a silent blessing. And there is the quiet, steady presence of two companions, a man and a wolf, finding a moment of perfect, quiet rest in a world that offers them so little. They have found a temporary peace in the heart of their endless journey. And so we leave him there, in the quiet ruin, under the watchful eyes of the stars and his faithful friend. The road will call again with the morning light, but for now there is only the soft, fading glow of the dying fire, and the slow, steady breath of a man and a wolf, finally at peace. Sleep well.